Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Johanna Chan. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Locally transmitted COVID infections dropped from yesterday, but officials worry about untraceable cases. Residents of 2 more blocks in Kwai Chung Estate are free to leave after lockdowns lasting several days. Hong Kong has now gone an entire week with daily COVID cases in triple digits, although local infections fell to 86. There continues to be a number of untraceable infections across the city. Winna Wang reports.
With 120 new infections today, Hong Kong reached its 7th straight day of new daily cases in triple digits. Locally transmitted cases fell to just 86, although 11 of them were considered untraceable. The patients come from various areas in Kowloon and the New Territories. They include 3 Omicron patients who reside in To Kwa Wan, while another lives in Lam Tin's Laguna City. There was also 1 case in Kwai Chung Estate in Cheung Kwan O. Authorities also discovered further expansions to the Cheung Bo House cluster in Choi Wan Estate, where over 20 residents became confirmed cases earlier this week. One of them is believed to have spread the virus to a colleague at the Hong Kong Day Eatery in Admiralty's Far East Finance Center, while another has infected a co-worker at the Cape Collinson Crematorium. People who visited the crematorium in Chai Wan between January 21st and 27th have been slapped with a testing order. School outbreaks are also growing. 4 more students from the Yun Yun Institute No. 3 Secondary School were confirmed cases today. Authorities are now trying to figure out whether and how there was cross-contamination at the Hakka Cuisine restaurant at the Lions Rise Mall. Chung Kwan from the Center for Health Protection said patients in question visited the eatery on the same day, but sat at 2 tables that were quite far away from each other. But, she noted, they asked for the bill at almost the same time and said they may have had contact when leaving the restaurant. Winna Wang, HKIBC.
More than 70 COVID cases were found in 2 Kwai Chung Estate blocks while they were sealed off for several days. The lockdowns of Ha Kwai House and Ying Kwai House ended this morning. Maisie Mock reports.
After being confined in their block for 7 days, residents of Ying Kwai House were finally allowed to leave. This man said he felt as though he was being released from the prison and was eager to make use of his freedom to go for a walk. This woman said she wanted to celebrate with a cup of milk tea. Despite being locked in, she praised the government for providing 3 meals a day plus a gift bag. Ying Kwai House was sealed off last Saturday, a day after neighboring Yet Kwai House was locked down. More than 13,000 tests were carried out in Ying Kwai House, and 59 people were confirmed with COVID. The 5-day lockdown of Ha Kwai House also ended this morning. It was a relief for dogs and their owners too. This man had to walk up and down 10 floors of stairs to exercise his dog. While some residents said arrangements had improved, there were complaints about the food provided. More than 9,000 tests were carried out for Ha Kwai House residents since Monday, and 16 COVID cases were detected. Elsewhere, no positive results were found after around 300 people were tested overnight in Long King Mansion in Hong Kong and Tai Yuen House in Tsuen Wan. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
A government health advisor has warned that up to 20,000 elderly people could die if there's a serious COVID outbreak. Another expert said the current 5th wave could last for months. With cases surfacing in different districts, health experts are getting increasingly worried. Government advisor Wallace Lau says he believes the 5th wave could last quite a long time.
I don't think it will be over within the next 1 to 2 months, especially with the recent discoveries of quite a lot of unknown origin cases.
A survey by the Democratic Party suggested that the idea of living with the virus is gaining traction, but Lau said the city is not ready.
I think ideally everyone to be vaccinated, if not at least 90% of the population to be vaccinated before we actually consider being more open and to live with the virus. I don't think we are at that stage yet. We are not ready yet.
Another government advisor, Lau Yulong, noted the low vaccination rates for primary school students and the elderly. He estimated that up to 20,000 elderly people could die in a worst-case scenario and urged them and children to get jabbed. As of last night, at least 79% of the city's population had their first dose. Over 2% of 5 to 11-year-olds and nearly 31% of those above 80 had their first jabs. Community vaccination centers will be closed from Monday to Wednesday for the Lunar New Year holiday. Police Commissioner Raymond Siu has warned that disclaimers on news items are useless if the content breaches the law. Newspaper columns have added disclaimers after the Apple Daily and Stan News were accused of publishing seditious materials. Siu told a radio show that this practice was what he called self-hypnosis, adding reports should be written truthfully and factually. The police chief said the public and media can criticize the government, but drew the line at inciting hatred. Baptist University has warned of disciplinary action after the editorial board of the Students' Union resigned en masse, citing management interference. The resignations came after the university told the board to withdraw one issue of its magazine, Jumbo, following complaints about articles which legal advisors said might breach the law. The board said the university had previously interfered in its reporting on national security courses, adding it was ordered not to use the term Wuhan virus. The university has ended its relationship with the editorial board and will act against students involved in misconduct. 10 people were injured as 6 vehicles, including a bus, plunged into a ravine when a bridge gave way in the U.S. city of Pittsburgh.
As I was driving across it, in my mind, I knew the bridge was collapsing. I could just feel it. The bus was bouncing and shaking. The first thing I did was put the foot on the brakes so the bus didn't slide backwards.
Rescuers used ropes and formed human chains to haul the victims to safety. 3 of them were sent to hospital. The collapse at 6 a.m. local time occurred hours before President Joe Biden arrived in Pittsburgh to push for infrastructure improvement. He visited the scene and later warned the country that bridges and roads need urgent repairs.
But across the country, there are 45,000 bridges in poor condition. It's just simply unacceptable. We don't need headlines saying that someone was killed when the next bridge collapsed. We're also providing billions more for roads and so much more. We saw today when a bridge is in disrepair, it literally can threaten lives.
Police in Canada are on high alert in the capital, Ottawa, and across the country ahead of massive protests against vaccine mandates. Truck drivers are spearheading the campaign, but other groups are joining in.
The demonstrations this weekend will be unique, fluid, risky, and significant. These demonstrations are national in scope. They're massive in scale. Unfortunately, they are polarizing in nature. And they come almost 2 full years into a highly stressful and tragic global pandemic. The risk factors extend beyond the core demonstrators to those that have already indicated online and in other forums that they're prepared to engage directly or indirectly with the events that will transpire over the next several days here. And some of them have been very clear in inciting hate, encouraging acts of violence and criminality.
Hundreds of drivers are making their voices heard by driving their lorries to Ottawa. They are angry with a rule which requires them to be fully vaccinated when they enter Canada or the United States. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has dismissed the protesters as a small fringe, but there are fears of clashes erupting. Russian President Vladimir Putin has told his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron that he will stick to diplomacy, despite the West ignoring Moscow's security concerns. Putin's comments came as Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky played down fears that Russia will invade his country. Russian troops deployed along the border with Ukraine have held military exercises, but Moscow says it has no intention of attacking its neighbor, adding that the West is engaging in hysteria over claims of an imminent Russian invasion. Ukrainian forces, meanwhile, have been testing weapons supplied by the West. Moscow sees the arms buildup as a provocation on its doorstep. Desperate Afghans are reportedly being forced to sell their organs and children in order to survive. That's the grim situation for some people in the country's first winter since the Taliban took charge again. Winna Wong reports.
Scars from the surgery they had to undergo to harvest their organs. Squabbling over basic necessities. And weeping because her bag of flour was stolen. It's really very hard right now, this woman said desperately as she fretted over her children's next meal. This is the reality for many in Afghanistan right now. Others, like this woman, considered selling her children as she struggled to keep them alive. Maybe it will be better for them, she says, and we can afford to buy food for the others. The first winter since the Taliban returned to power in August is a bitter one for most Afghans. Foreign aid has been frozen as the cash-strapped country, ravaged by war, drought, and floods, spirals towards a catastrophe. The World Food Program in Afghanistan says it needs $2.6 billion this year, and even that will only amount to 30 cents per person per day.
I think abandoning the people of Afghanistan and allowing them just to become a nation of beggars is neither in the interests of Afghans themselves or the region, nor is it in the interests of the international community. That is likely to have not only humanitarian consequences, but security consequences. It will result in more displacement, more migration, more illicit economic activity like narcotics, selling of organs and things.
Other charities and the United Nations are appealing for donations and aid for Afghanistan. Winna Wong, HKIBC.
One of Hong Kong's most popular Lunar New Year attractions may reopen after the festival. Officials of Lam Chun Village in Tai Po said the wishing tree and the surrounding square will be closed until February 17th. Whether they will reopen after that will depend on the government's COVID arrangements. The village had earlier announced the cancellation of the traditional festival and sealed off the square from the public. In London, Chinatown is preparing for the festival, but with Britain in the grips of an Omicron outbreak, organizers are taking precautions.
We have to protect, the general public. We don't to encourage people will come in masses, to celebrate together. I do hope that, the people don't all rush in, into Chinatown, because they can easily come and celebrate, in the future. And because the Chinese New Year, as you know, they last for, 2 weeks. So, they can always come along, have some nice food, and to celebrate with us.
New lanterns have been put up on a street crammed with Chinese restaurants. Celebrations are going ahead, but activities will be scaled down as London is still grappling with COVID. On to the weather now. Tomorrow will be mainly cloudy and very cold, with the temperature plunging to 12 degrees. It will remain cold as we head into the Lunar New Year. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Saturday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Johanna Chan. Thanks for watching. Good night.